looks like we're going to be getting David Benavidez versus David Morrell sometime January. I think it's scheduled for January 25th, but I don't see it set in stone on BoxRec. But I'm going to go ahead and say, make the prediction for this fight anyway, assuming that it should take place January. Looks like reports are saying that this fight is already sealed, so we should be getting that in January. So let's talk about it. Let me give my prediction on this fight and who I think should win this. I kind of already hinted on this, on other videos, but this is the official prediction. All right, so look, tail of the tape, we got David Benavidez, 29 wins, no losses, 24 big wins by knockout, 82% knockout ratio, 27 years old, 6'2", with a 74.5-inch arm reach. Okay. And we got David Morrell, the less experienced fighter, coming in with 11 wins, no losses, 9 big wins by knockout, 81% knockout ratio, 26 years of age, 6'1", with a 78.5-inch arm reach. So David Morrell, slightly shorter than David Benavidez, but definitely has much longer arm reach, and he's younger. Okay. David Morrell, more of a heavy-handed puncher, slower, doesn't really utilize much footwork, basic defense, nothing too happy to bring home to mama. Plodding fighter at times, very aggressive, and like I said, heavy hands as well. David Benavidez, quick, good hand speed, good punching power as well. Defense leaves a lot to be desired with him as well, but he has better reflexes. David Morrell is much faster, so I would have to give him the nod on the defense. But neither one of them really utilize much footwork. And keep in mind though that both of these dudes are moving up in weight, and their last fights, both of them, their power wasn't really a factor in either one of them in their first fights at 175. That could be due to them, they have to get settled into the division. So we'll see how they do against each other. Okay, so maybe we'll start seeing both of their powers will ended up probably shining through on each other when they fight. Okay, but how does this fight go, man, between these two? But before I get into that, I'm gonna the last 3 fights between these dudes. David Morrell's last 3 was 2 knockouts, and those was both at 168 right away. And in his first debut with Kalzik, I can never pronounce his name, and he ended up not looking too good, not too impressive in that fight. His power wasn't really doing much to Kalzik. It was not really hurting him. Morrell seemed flustered in that fight in some spots. Looked like he didn't know what he was doing. Like he was confused by the movement of Kalzik, and was never really. I never saw him really hurt at all. Okay, but he ended up getting a 12-round decision, outboxing Kalzik, because Kalzik he was catching David, but he was pot-shotting him. Wasn't too aggressive. Morrell was the aggressor in that fight. So, most of the time, man, you're the aggressor. In the eyes of the judges, you're the one that's really pressing the fight. Lots of times they'll lean your way. Not all the time, but sometimes. Then against Sinel Agbeko, destroyed him in the second round. And then Falco destroyed him in the first round. So these dudes wasn't really any tough competition. So Kalzik was David Morrell's first step-up fight, in my opinion. Okay, so keep that in mind, y'all. And then David Benavidez, his last 3 fights were against, obviously, Vostik at 175, which was his first fight at the division, Demetrius Andrade, and Caleb Plant. Good fight between him and Plant, went the whole distance. And Demetrius Andrade, he knocked him out in the sixth round. Just really beat the hell out of Andre. Andre put up a good fight early on, did what he could, but David Benavidez was too big, too strong for him, man. Then Vostik first moved to 175. David Benavidez actually looked like a human, didn't look a monster in that fight. He was still had his hand speed, but he wasn't, he didn't really. He was having problems trying to hurt this dude. He was throwing everything at him, and he barely. I mean, he didn't even put a dent in this dude. So that could be an indicator that his power is not really a threat up at 175. And if that's the case, I think David Benavidez is going to have a hard time at 175, especially with Beterbiev or Bivol. The same with David Morrell, same thing. All right, but how does this fight look, man? Morrell was eager, man, to get this fight. He's been calling out David Benavidez for a long time, chasing him, calling himself chasing him up to 175 and all of this stuff. But this is how this fight gonna go, man. Benavidez, he didn't lose his hand speed. His power looked like it was kind of diminished at the weight. So did Morrell's. But we don't know. It could be a totally different case with both of these dudes where they have to get acclimated to the division. And if this is that fight, yeah, you're gonna see some heavy hands being landed in this fight, man. Potentially, you might see some knockdowns between both of these dudes if that's the case. If not, I say David Benavidez is gonna smoke him just by experience and by pure hand speed. He gonna start putting leather all over Morrell, gonna fluster him. He's more aggressive than Kalajdzic dude. So David Benavidez is gonna press the action against Morrell. And I don't think Morrell gonna know how to handle that pressure. Even though he himself could put pressure on you, I don't think he handled anybody in the caliber of David Benavidez. So I'm calling for this fight. If the power is there, I say David Benavidez stops David Morrell within 7 rounds. I give it round 7 knockout for David Benavidez. If his power is not, I still got David Benavidez beating him by unanimous decision. I think the hand speed is gonna be too much. Benavidez probably gonna have to watch out. Don't leave himself open and getting clipped by Morrell because he could possibly get hurt. But I highly doubt it, man. I just think David Benavidez is the better fighter, quicker, might even be stronger. But I think he can't handle the speed. I think his speed gonna be too much for David Morrell, and that jab of Benavidez is gonna bust him up. I think all night if it go to cards, his face gonna be. By the end of the fight, you're gonna see Morrell's face gonna look crazy. But if David Benavidez's power starts to blossom magically in this fight, he stops David Morrell round 7 or 8. I'll give it round 7. Just my opinion. Let me know what you think. So my grand prediction for this fight is David Benavidez by decision over David Morrell. Let me know what you think. This is Rebel Life Boxing. I'll catch y'all in the next one. I'm off this.